this lovely book of poetry is loosely based on the life of a 13th century Persian mystic, Sa'adi of Shiraz. You see, Sa'adi knows that he's dying, but he isn't sad. As he approaches death, he only wants one thing: to lie one last time in the arms of his beloved bride and to leave this earth while in her embrace. Could anything be more romantic? Avetik Isahakyan was one of the 20th century's most glorious poets, revered throughout the Soviet Union and in Armenian communities throughout the Middle East.
It seems to me that a great poet, whatever his nationality, cannot help but fall in love with Iranian lyric poetry.
Fragments of not just Iranian, but broader Oriental culture decorate Isahakyan's House Museum.
He was very fond of Chinese, of ancient Chinese and Chinese literature and folklore, and very interested in Buddhism.
As you make your way around the museum, you'll notice canvases of Arabian caravans on the walls, portraits of Isahakyan wearing a Palestinian keffiyeh on his head, and collections of Indian and Chinese statuettes, including one of a Buddha. To be honest, it may be a bit of an exaggeration on my part to call Isahakyan an Eastern poet. He was above all a lyrical poet, as evidenced even in nationalist writings such as the Songs of the Haiduks. This 1906 anthology of poems was written in the tradition of classical Armenian poetry, and it centers on Armenian freedom fighters and the struggle for Armenian liberation from Ottoman domination. And despite the obvious influence of Eastern literature on Armenian classics, Isahakyan also remained a devotee of European progress and values, particularly German culture. Late in his life, Isahakyan studied at the University of Leipzig before returning to Armenia. There, he developed an admiration for German literature. As a result, he began collecting the works of German thinkers published at the beginning of the 19th century. Some of the books that line the walls of his house museum are among the only surviving copies anywhere in the world. Literally priceless.
One day, staff from the German embassy in Yerevan came to the museum. They had noticed that we had collections of German poets and philosophers dating back to the early 1800s. The majority of these books were destroyed during the Second World War, so you see, we have some books here that cannot be found elsewhere, even in German libraries.
Even today, the Isahakyan House Museum serves as a platform for German and Armenian translators to meet and learn from each other. But Isahakyan was no dreamy poet or ivory tower intellectual. He used his pen to fight for freedom and equality. In fact, Isahakyan had been politically active since his early youth. In 1896, at the age of just 21, he'd already been arrested and spent a year in a Yerevan prison. And a few years later, in 1908, along with the great storyteller Hovhannes Tumanyan and 160 other Armenian intellectuals, Isahakyan was again jailed, this time in Tbilisi's Metechi prison.
It is Isahakyan's poems, more than any others, that have become the lyrics for popular songs. After the 1988 earthquake, people used to sing Isahakyan's Sing of My Grief, Mountainous Wildflowers, whereas during weddings, people sang his I Loved and They Took My Love Away. Armenians turned to Isahakyan during both good and bad times.
Isahakyan composed perhaps his greatest poem, Abu Lala Mahari. The work is loosely based on the life of the blind 11th century Arab-Iraqi bard Abul Ala al-Mari, a man disgusted by the world's deceit and trickery. At the beginning of the first surah, Mahari quickly saddles up his caravan. Then he looks straight at the blazing desert sun and flees treacherous humanity for good. In 1936, Isahakyan returned to his fatherland for good. He died here on October 17, 1957. Yet in spite of all the hardships he witnessed, When I think of Isahakyan and look around at the many wonderful objects that today fill this beautiful house museum on Zarobian Street in Yerevan, it is an image of peace that remains. Discussing his language and his culture, Isahakyan wrote, "Armenians are a small people, always under the knife, but in quality we're equal to great nations. We've created 2 magnificent languages, and great architecture which has influenced the world." Armenia. Love its language and its culture, its writing and literature. I kiss these words and give them to you.